All right, welcome everybody. Glad to have you here with Mystery Wire with George Knapp. I'm Ron Futrell. We have John Forrest and Carlos Sampson here, also flipping the switches and producing this show. And George, looking forward to this show today. We're actually going to do two parts, so there's going to be a couple of these shows, special guests here that you're very familiar with.
Luigi Vendittelli is a Canadian marketer, businessman, entrepreneur who is now, can add a couple of more words to his resume, film director and producer. And he produced this project that is talked about all over the world. It's a big hit right out of the gate. It is S4, the Bob Lazar Story. Joe Rogan kicked it off, which is a good platform to start with. And Luigi is in Las Vegas today and here with us for Mystery Wire. Good to have you here.
Good to be here, guys. Love it.
I guess when you started it, have a number one right out of the gate, there's only one way down, one way you could go as a director, right?
Well, it's something that I didn't expect. Neither anybody on the team expected. It's been great. We came out 2 days after the film was launched. We hit number one on Amazon, and that held for like a good 4 days. And then slightly fell into number two, number three, and we've been steady on number four as most sold film in America on Amazon, and we're still number one best documentary since we launched. So that's pretty cool.
Pretty good chance you're going to stay there for a while.
I hope so.
No, it's been tremendous reaction. I've watched it a couple of times, and George's figures prominently in it, of course, because you cannot tell the Bob Lazar story without George. And George, you did an interview with Lazar this week, and one of the items I picked out of it was where he talks about Luigi and the effort that he put forward in this film. Here's Bob Lazar.
Because no matter how many times you tell a story, you can tell a story to 100 people, even a detailed explanation of what you're trying to get across, and you will still come out with 40 or 50 different, images in their mind or versions of it. So, I thought it'd be great to actually make every single thing I said visible, like you were just a fly on my shoulder walking around through S4 and explain everything. And wow, he did it.
Okay, a monumental effort to try to do that, to recreate something that happened almost 40 years ago now, 35 years ago or so. But Bob Lazar gave it the endorsement. By the way, Luigi, you were able to nail it, he basically said, and get it exactly the way he saw it back in the day in 1989. That has to make you feel good, doesn't it?
That was the goal. That's also why it took so long and kind of drained every resource we had at the company to make it happen, because we really wanted to make sure once we started it and saw that we were able to do it at that level, we said we have to finish it like this. And so it's been a 4.5 year endeavor. We started filming it a year after we began the project, and we basically took about 3 years to finalize the actual documentary side of it. So it was exciting to be putting it out there. It was exciting to see Bob's reactions every time we would show him very small snippets at the very end of the development of the base and the craft, so that he could. I mean, he was there throughout the entire process, but in very isolated areas of the base. But when we finally gave him a full view, it was really reassuring and great for us to see that he was very happy with how it turned out, because he said it felt like we had downloaded it from his brain. So that was exactly what he said.
We're showing video clips from the early days of Bob and the initial sketches that he made for us when we were first telling the story. Very crude. He's become much better at describing what things look like, but I can't imagine what it would be like to drag those images out of his head and recreate them as you have done. It was laborious for sure.
It was a long process because there were so many details. And one of the things that I'm sure, George, you're familiar with is I had to make sure that they were really precisely what Bob explained, because a lot of people look at this story with a special magnifying glass. So everybody's looking at every single piece that is in there. And I said, if I don't pay attention and I don't do this right, I'll miss something. My team will miss something. It'll be picked up. It'll be like the one thing out of everything that people will focus on. So we were very, very specific to take the time and to make sure that everything was accurate and that Bob would vet it. That Bob would say, yeah, that's it. There was a lot of times that we did stuff and we showed it to him and he said, no, that's actually not right. You have to change a few things. And we did. So there was a lot of back and forth, but we really wanted to make sure that anybody who had a special magnifying glass would find very little to complain about.
Oh, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
No, they will be out there. And you had to have high expectations for this. Has it surpassed the reaction? What I'm talking about, the reaction from the people in the public going to number one right away. Has that surpassed your expectations?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, we were very, very, we stayed very grounded. And I have Veronica on my team who is always super grounded. And she kept grounding us all the time saying, look, this is the very first time we do this. So we should not expect people to just super love this. It could be, it's going to flop. It could be people are going to criticize it for whatever reason because it's all VFX and it's not real images of a flying saucer, which the government hasn't produced yet. So we were trying to be as grounded as possible. But when the numbers came out in the very first week, I mean, we actually got a call from our distributor saying, you guys are number one. And that made us all go like, what? Because we were not expecting that. So it was a surprise, but a good one.
In recreating S4, there have been, as I mentioned, these crude drawings that Bob would put out here and there. And as you are going through that process back and forth with him, no, this is wrong. This should be over here. It also rekindles memories in his head, real memories. Wait a second, the color of the paint was this, and there was a desk over here, right?
That's actually a really good point, George, because there was everything was built independently. So it wasn't like we started building S4 as a whole building. It started with the entrance room, the hallway was a big piece, the briefing room, the nurse station, obviously the propulsion lab, the big hangar, and then the adjacent hangars. And as we were doing this, we were obviously following all the information that Bob Lazar had given us. On top of that, and I should note that anywhere Bob Lazar did not have information on, we actually had 2 consultants that actually worked at Groom Lake, telling us what the interior of hangars looked like out there. Because some of the stuff was, hey, Bob, did the beams look like this or did they look like this? And Bob was like, I wasn't looking at the beams. I went into the hangar, the beams were not part of my focus. He says, I'm looking at the sport model. So of course there were things that Bob didn't remember that we needed consulting on, but all the stuff that he did remember, he gave to us. And then when we would bring him in each individual room, especially the main hangar and the propulsion lab, he started remembering things that he had forgotten just because he hadn't been there. And one of them was inside the propulsion lab, there's 2 doors to access it from the hallway. And he's in there. He says, there's a door missing. And I said, no, Bob, the 2 doors are there. He goes, no, there's a door. There's a door that goes to the hangar. And I said, you never told us that. He goes, of course, I forgot. There's a door that goes to the hangar because it wasn't there. And so being in the environment clearly sparked, his memory. And I compare that to myself because I started putting myself in Bob Lazar's shoes. I said, if somebody asked me, what was the color of the door of the washroom in my high school? I can't remember, but I vaguely remember the layout of the floor. So if I think somebody were to recreate my high school and I would go back in there, like I brought Bob into S4, I probably would also start remembering things going, wait, that's not right. I don't remember it being like that, because that's how memory works.
No, it does. Okay, we got to take a quick break here. When we come back, more with George's interview with Bob Lazar, where he talks about that attention to detail, certainly. More with Luigi Vendittelli when we return here to Mystery Wire. All right, we are back with George Knapp and Luigi Vendittelli, the producer of S4, the Bob Lazar Story. We talked a lot about the mechanics of putting this all together, and George, you talked to Lazar just recently, and one of the things you asked him the question about the details of this film, and they are remarkable. I've watched it a couple of times and love it. So here's you talking to Bob Lazar.
Describe the process for how your memories of what S4 looked like are translated into the virtual reality that's shown in this film.
I mean, it took 3 years working with Luigi and, multiple trips to Canada. And he's so meticulous when it comes to detail. I mean, he would come with Pantone charts. If I said, well, what color is the hallway? No, the hallway is kind of an off-white and green, painted on the bottom. Well, what shade of green? He'd come with a Pantone chart of, 300 tiles of different greens, and you pick that, and, okay, so that's exactly it. When he shows S4 outside on that particular day, he got the archived weather information and the cloud cover. So when there's a, shot outside and if you see any clouds or whatever, that's exactly how the clouds were in that day. So every single thing. So that took a lot of communication back and forth, certainly with the craft itself, describing that and the, where the components go, the base itself, the hallways, what each room looks like. Okay, was there a vending machine here in the cafeteria? Okay, where was it? Now, what brand was it? We're going to go through a bunch of different, every single thing. And, at some point, you just start rolling your eyes going, Jesus, just put anything there. But fortunately, he didn't.
The details are important, as Luigi mentioned earlier. People have looked at this and looked and re-looked. Some people have devoted their lives to try to debunk anything that Bob Lazar ever said. I don't know how they're going to debunk what the inside of S4 looked like because none of them have ever been there. But a lot of people have been looking for the outside. And we need to remind our viewers and those who are new to this story that S4, according to Lazar, was built into the side of this mountain. These hangars are there, and they're disguised so that they look like the desert, and so that they couldn't be seen from above, even by satellites. The film that you produced, Luigi, takes an advance in that regard. You were looking for it for a long time, meticulous as you are, to see if there are any signs of the exterior of S4. We haven't shown any of that yet, and we don't want to spoil the surprise, but what can you say about what you did find?
Well, there is a big piece of evidence that is in the film that was presented, and we were contacted by a gentleman called Scott Mitchell, who was reaching out to us in wanting to provide us some of the details. We had been contacted by everyone. We were getting thousands of emails, messages on our Instagrams and YouTube of please reach out, we have information. And we had to unfortunately ignore most of them because we were building the base. This particular guy sent us a drawing of where the hangar doors were supposed to be. And he says, I have a picture that I really want to show you. And for some reason, it caught my attention because we had built the base and we knew exactly where the doors were laid out and how the size of the doors were, the first one being larger than the subsequent 8 ones, and basically matched pretty well to what we had built. So I thought something had leaked from our team. I thought somebody on my team leaked a picture from our environment, and this guy basically said, check this out. So this picture that is in the film was taken in 2020 by a private pilot who flew into the restricted airspace on December 25th. It was December 25th, 2020, which means it was Christmas during COVID. Meaning it's very likely that they allowed him into that restricted airspace because much of the activities there must have been stopped because of COVID and the fact that it was Christmas. Anyway, long story short, this guy made a pretty amazing flight within the boundaries of Area 51 Nevada test site, took 900 pictures out there, and a few of them, specifically this one, was pointed right at the hill where S4 was located. It was 17 miles away. He had a Nikon camera with a huge scope on it and was a lens on it, took an incredibly good quality, high resolution shot, and that picture was used for many, many years to debunk the story of Bob Lazar, saying, look, there's nothing there. You could see there's no doors. Clearly, from 17 miles away, looking for camouflage doors is going to be a hard thing to see. This guy reaches out and said, look, anybody can reproduce this. You can download the original raw file online and play with the contrast on the image and bring out some of the values, and you'll see the doors. And we did. And when he sent us his picture, we saw it. We saw this geometric shape of large, angled, rectangular geometric shapes into the side of that hill, and we then reproduced it ourselves. I gave it to everybody in my team. I said, I want you to download the raw file online that is public, that the pilot had placed publicly, and try to get this same result. And in very short time, 2 of the people on my team got it right away. And then following that, other people got it with their methods. I wanted everybody to do it independently. Then we did a forensic analysis of that picture to see if that type of geometric shape would repeat in the picture or subsequent pictures that he snapped after that. And it was on that picture, clearly, the hangar doors are visible. No matter what anybody wants to say, they are not natural formation. They are right-angled, rectangular, geometric shapes that mimic large hangar doors in the side of that hill.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We have a minute left in this segment. Okay, I'm going to propose something crazy. I can't drive a backhoe, but we take a couple of backhoes, caterpillars out there, start digging into that mountainside. Okay, I know the feds wouldn't let us do it. We'd have to do it maybe at night. That wouldn't work either.
You're proposing Storm S4.
Right. Storm S4.
I've heard this before.
You have. Or let's go here. Again, I'm eating up a lot of 30 seconds. Why doesn't the government just do it? Why don't they go in there and expose and show us that there's nothing there or there is something there? Okay, it's just a thought.
Let's hold our breath on that one.
Probably not going to happen, but just my thoughts. I'm going to practice on the backhoe and the caterpillar and see what we can do. Okay, with that, quick break here. When we return, much more with Luigi talking about S4, the Bob Lazar story. Okay, critical to the Bob Lazar story are the trips out to the desert. He took 3 of them with friends, John Lear being among them, Gene Huff, you see him in the movie, where there were flights that the aircraft they were saying was taking place, the sport model out there. We've got some video of that was also seen in the movie. And you talked to George, you talked to Bob about those flights and how important they were and how critical it was to his story.
You guys went out there with a group, with the 2 different groups, and saw a craft lift up from Papoose Lake, and you got it on video. A couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another great thing about the movie. I mean, he got Gene Huff, one of the main witnesses, to actually recount what he saw, and I know I had a little clip of John Lear in there too, but. It was good to see somebody other than me saying something.
No, it wasn't. Here's some of that video. That's important to this story, isn't it, Luigi? It's critical to this story.
I mean, the critical part of it is exactly that. Is not only the video is not very. I mean, obviously, it's an '80s camera at night looking at a bright object in the sky. It's not the greatest video, but it's clearly showing something in the air there, moving erratically in the air. But what's important is the fact that there were other people, and that Gene Huff is an incredibly credible person. We were very fortunate to have Gene Huff interviewed in the film, and he was very open to finally divulging the whole part of what he saw, which he said at the time, because at a certain point this craft became brighter and brighter and then disappeared. And he had never mentioned that because he thought people will not believe this. This sounds really far out there to think, one, we saw something move erratically, but then this thing came closer to us, became very bright, and just vanished. So he's a witness. He's a firsthand witness to seeing that, and he kept insisting. Although I believed Bob Lazar earlier, this is empirical evidence. I saw a craft do that. Bob Lazar could not have made that happen unless he knew. He made us go there at the exact time that he knew they were testing the craft. So it's a very important part.
It's important because officially our military, anybody who goes on the record will say, we've never had any facility at Papoose. We've never had a base there. We don't use that area, even though there are roads that lead to it and you can see them. And they're rising right above Papoose, not Groom Lake, but above Papoose is this bright glowing object 3 times that they went out there and they captured it on video. How did he know? How did he know that?
I mean, that's a huge, there's 2 things there. One, he had to have known that because how could he just pretend he knows this and it happens? And 2, there's other people who saw it. So I always say this, and I say this also to you, George, is that there's a lot of detractors or people don't want to accept this story. But the reality is that if this is not a real story, then everyone's making it up. And what? So the witnesses are making that up too? Like what's this all about?
No, good point, Luigi. We've got to stop it there. We do have a part 2 of this, so you'll be able to watch that will be out shortly. And perhaps by the time you're watching this, it's already out, but will be out shortly as the time that we're doing this. Go to our website, 8newsnow.com, the Mystery Wire page. You can see the full interview with Bob Lazar there, and more with Luigi, and more on S4, the Bob Lazar story. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
Luigi.
you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching, everybody. Bye for now.